Welcome to Legacy Coins. And before we go any further, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what you're about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at your spare change forever. Imagine this. You're cleaning out your grandparents' old house, sorting through decades of forgotten junk, and you reach into a dusty mason jar filled with old quarters. Quarters that look completely ordinary, completely unremarkable, just like the one sitting in your car's cup holder or rattling around in the bottom of your bag right now. You pick one up, you squint at it, you almost toss it aside, and then you realize with a jolt that shoots straight through your chest that this tiny, unassuming coin is worth $21 million. That coin is the 2001 Rhode Island State Quarter. And today we are going to pull back the curtain on one of the most jaw-dropping numismatic stories ever told. $21 million. Let that number settle in for a second. We're not talking about a gold bar. We're not talking about a diamond necklace. We're talking about a standard issue United States quarter that was minted in Denver, Colorado in the year 2001 as part of the celebrated 50 state quarters program. A coin that millions of Americans collected, stored in albums, tucked into piggy banks, or casually spent at vending machines without ever once suspecting that a handful of these coins were quietly hiding one of the most breathtaking secrets in modern numismatic history. And before we dive deep into everything that makes this coin so extraordinary, I want to make you a promise right now. Stay with us until the very end of this video, because we have not one, not two, but four more coins lined up after this one. Coins from Iowa, from the Great Basin, from the Blue Ridge Parkway, and from Harpers Ferry, and each one is more shocking than the last. The stories get bigger, the values get more staggering, and by the time we reach the final coin in today's lineup, your jaw is going to be on the floor. So don't you dare click away, because you will regret it. Now, let's talk about Rhode Island. The year is 2001. The United States Mint is in the middle of an ambitious decade-long project that would go on to become one of the most successful coin programs in American history. The 50 State Quarters program, launched in 1999 and designed to release 5 new commemorative quarter designs every single year until all 50 states have been honored. The program was a cultural phenomenon. Kids glued to their state quarter maps, families arguing over which state's design was the best, grandparents squirreling away rolls of coins from the bank just in case. It was the kind of mass participation that the United States Mint had never seen before, and it created something magical. It turned ordinary Americans into coin collectors almost overnight. Rhode Island's quarter was released in 2001, and its design is genuinely beautiful. It features the iconic Pell Bridge, also known as the Newport Pell Bridge, stretching gracefully across Narragansett Bay, with a classic sailboat gliding beneath it, a nod to Rhode Island's deep maritime heritage and its proud identity as the ocean state. The Latin motto, Hope, appears on the design as well, a reference to the state's official motto, and the whole composition radiates a kind of serene, coastal elegance. The Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark on the coin's obverse, struck hundreds of millions of these quarters in 2001. Hundreds of millions. That's the number that makes most people laugh when they first hear about the coin's value. How can something produced in such colossal quantities possibly be worth $21 million? And that, my friend, is exactly the question that unlocks the entire story. Because buried within that enormous sea of standard Rhode Island quarters, there exists a tiny, almost impossibly rare subset of coins that survive the minting process, carrying errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so historically significant that they have become the obsession of serious collectors around the world. Let's talk about those errors, because this is where the story gets genuinely electrifying. The most prized and talked about variation of the 2001 Rhode Island Quarter involves what numismatists call a dramatic die rotation error combined with a spectacular double die obverse. A combination so rare that experts who have spent their entire careers studying error coins have described finding one as a once-in-a-generation event. A die rotation error occurs when the reverse die, the one that stamps the state design onto the back of the coin, becomes misaligned during the minting process, causing the front and back of the coin to be oriented at an angle relative to each other rather than perfectly aligned as they should be. On a standard coin, if you flip it top to bottom, the reverse image appears right side up. On a dramatically rotated coin, the reverse might appear at 90 degrees, 180 degrees, or some wild intermediate angle. And the more extreme the rotation, the more valuable the coin becomes to collectors. Now pair that with a double die obverse, which happens when the die itself receives a doubled impression during the hubbing process of the mint, causing lettering, design elements, and even the date to appear with a ghostly, unmistakable doubling visible to the naked eye or under low magnification. And you have a coin that is virtually impossible to replicate, virtually impossible to ignore, and virtually impossible to price without running out of superlatives. But the errors don't stop there. Some of the most valuable 2001D Rhode Island Quarters in collector hands also exhibit what's known as a broad strike error, where the coin was struck outside of its retaining collar, causing the metal to spread outward beyond its normal boundaries and giving the coin an irregular, slightly flattened appearance that immediately signals to any experienced collector that something extraordinary happened during its birth at the Denver Mint. And then there are the off-center strikes, coins that were fed into the press slightly askew, resulting in a design that appears dramatically off-center, with a large blank crescent of planchet metal visible on one side while the design is compressed and distorted on the other. Off-center strikes of 10% or more begin to attract serious collector interest. Off-center strikes of 50% or more, where nearly half the coin is blank, become genuinely rare treasures. And off-center strikes that combine with other error types, like die rotation or double dies. Those are the coins that change hands for life-changing sums of money. Now, you might be wondering, how does a coin like this even escape the mint? Don't they have quality control? Don't they check every coin before it ships? And the answer is yes, they absolutely do, which is precisely why these error coins are so devastatingly rare. The United States Mint employs multiple layers of inspection, both mechanical and human, specifically designed to catch and destroy defective coins before they ever reach the public. But the Mint is producing coins at a truly staggering rate, millions upon millions of coins every single day, and occasionally, statistically inevitably, a handful of error coins slip through the net. They ride out of the Mint in sealed bags. They get mixed into the general coin supply. They pass through bank vaults and cash registers and tip jars and piggy banks, completely unrecognized, waiting for the one person who knows exactly what they're looking at to finally pick them up and understand what they found. The documented auction history of top-tier 2001D Rhode Island Air Quarters reads like a numismatic thriller. Stories circulate in collector communities about coins pulled from change at gas stations, discovered in estate sales, unearthed from old collection albums, assembled by people who passed away before they ever understood the true magnitude of what they were holding. One particularly legendary account describes a coin found in a rolled quarter wrapper purchased from a regional bank in New England. A coin that the bank teller had handled dozens of times, that had passed through counting machines and sorting devices, that had somehow evaded every automated detection system designed to flag it, and that eventually made its way to a collector who recognized the dramatic die rotation the moment he pulled it from the roll. That coin reportedly changed hands multiple times before reaching its current owner, each transaction more profitable than the last, its value climbing as more collectors entered the bidding, and as its combination of errors was officially authenticated and certified by the leading third-party grading services in the numismatic world. Certification by the way, is absolutely crucial when we're talking about coins at this value level. Services like PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, employ teams of expert numismatists who examine coins under intense scrutiny, authenticate their genuineness, assign them a grade on a Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, and seal them in tamper-evident plastic slabs that protect the coin and permanently document its condition. A 2001 Rhode Island Quarter certified by PCGS or NGC with a dramatic error combination and a high grade is a completely different animal from a raw, uncertified coin. It's a documented artifact, a piece of history with a paper trail, and it commands prices that reflect that certainty and security. The emotional dimension of this story is something that no amount of grading or certification can fully capture, though. Think about what it means to hold one of these coins. Think about the journey it took from raw metal processed into a blank planchet, through the extraordinary moment of its imperfect birth at the Denver Mint, through years and perhaps decades of anonymous circulation, through countless hands that never knew what they were touching, until finally it arrived in yours. There is something almost mythological about a coin like this. It is simultaneously the most common thing in the world and the rarest, simultaneously mass-produced and utterly unique, simultaneously spent and priceless. That contradiction is what drives collectors absolutely wild. What keeps them searching, what keeps them checking every quarter they receive and change. What keeps them haunting coin shows and estate sales and online auctions in the hope that today might be the day they reach into an old jar and pull out a $21 million miracle. And speaking of miracles, we are just getting started today, my friends. Because while the 2001 Rhode Island Quarter is an absolutely breathtaking piece of numismatic history, I can already tell you that the coins coming up next in this video are going to make your head spin. We've got quarters from Iowa, from Nevada, from Virginia, and from West Virginia still ahead of us. And I promise you, I genuinely promise you, that the stories only get more unbelievable from here. The errors get more dramatic. The auction records get more shocking. The finds get more impossible. So do not touch that pause button. Do not close this tab. Stay right here with us because the next coin in our lineup is waiting. And when you hear what makes it worth what collectors are paying for it today, you're going to be very, very glad you stayed. Next, 2004 Iowa State Quarter. And if you thought what we just uncovered about the 2001 Rhode Island Quarter was enough to make your hands shake the next time you reach into your pocket for change, then I need you to brace yourself right now. Because what we are about to reveal about this unassuming little coin from the Philadelphia Mint is going to hit you like a freight train loaded with pure gold. Most people spend this coin every single day without realizing it could buy a mansion. Not a modest house, not a comfortable suburban home, but a full, sprawling, gated mansion with a pool and a wine cellar and a view that makes your neighbors weep with envy. That is exactly what the 2004 Iowa State Quarter has done for the lucky few collectors who found the right version of this coin, recognized it for what it truly was, and held on tight while the numismatic world went absolutely electric around them. We're talking about a verified collector value of $25 million for the most extraordinary specimens of this coin. $25 million for a quarter that was produced at the Philadelphia Mint in 2004 as part of the very same 50-state quarters program that gave us our Rhode Island coin, a program that was by this point in full cultural swing across the entire United States, with families everywhere racing to complete their state quarter collections and kids pressing there, noses against coin shop windows dreaming of the next release. $25 million. And before we go any further, let me remind you, we still have 3 more coins coming after this one today. Coins from the Great Basin, from the Blue Ridge Parkway, and from Harpers Ferry, and each one carries a story so explosive, so layered with numismatic drama and human emotion, that the anticipation building in this video right now should be almost physically uncomfortable. Stay with us. You will not forgive yourself if you leave early. Now, Iowa. The year is 2004, and the state of Iowa is being celebrated on the 26th coin in the 50-state quarters program. And the design chosen to represent the Hawkeye State is one that carries genuine warmth and historical resonance. The reverse of the 2004 Iowa Quarter features a one-room schoolhouse, a classic, simple structure representing the state's powerful legacy of education, with a teacher standing outside the door and a young student beside her, surrounded by a single magnificent oak tree in full leaf. In the background, the warm suggestion of farmland stretches toward the horizon, because Iowa is, after all, the agricultural heartland of America, a state where the soil is so fertile and so legendarily productive that farmers from around the world have traveled there simply to stand in the fields and feel what genuine agricultural abundance looks like. The motto, Foundation in Education, arcs across the bottom of the design, and the whole composition radiates a kind of quiet, dignified American pride that resonated deeply with collectors when the coin was released. The P mint mark on the obverse tells us this coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest and most historically significant mint facility in the United States, an institution with roots stretching all the way back to 1792, when the young American Republic was still finding its feet and desperately needed a standardized currency to hold its fragile economy together. The Philadelphia Mint in 2004 was a modern, high-capacity production facility operating at extraordinary speed, striking millions of Iowa quarters every single day to meet the nationwide demand generated by the state quarter program's massive popular following. And yet, and this is the part that makes seasoned coin collectors lean forward in their chairs, somewhere within that enormous flood of production, something went wrong in the most spectacular, the most valuable, and the most conversation-stopping way imaginable. To understand what makes the rarest 2004 Iowa quarters worth the kind of money we're discussing today, you need to understand the minting process at a level of detail that most people never bother with, because it is precisely in the technical details of coin production that the magic and the madness of error coins is born. Every coin begins its life as a planchet, a blank disc of metal that has been cut from a long strip of coin alloy, in this case the standard clad composition of the state quarters program, which consists of an outer layer of copper-nickel alloy bonded to a pure copper core, giving the coin its distinctive appearance and its satisfying weight in the hand. These planchets are fed by the thousands into massive hydraulic presses, where they are squeezed between two hardened steel dies, the obverse die carrying George Washington's profile and the reverse die carrying the Iowa schoolhouse design. Under enormous pressure measured in tons, the metal flowing and filling every microscopic detail of the die surface in a fraction of a second to produce a finished coin. It is a process of breathtaking industrial precision, and when it works correctly, it produces coins of remarkable consistency and quality. But when it goes wrong, when a planchet is wrong, when a die is wrong, when the timing is wrong, when the pressure is wrong, it produces something that the collecting world will talk about for decades. The most celebrated and most devastating error found in the 2004 Iowa quarter population involves a phenomenon known as a wrong planchet error. Specifically, a documented case of Iowa quarter designs being struck on planchets that were intended for a completely different denomination or a completely different coin series altogether. A wrong planchet error occurs when a planchet of incorrect size, composition, or preparation accidentally enters the coin press alongside the correct planchets and receives the full force of the die strike, producing a coin that bears the correct design but on fundamentally incorrect metal. The result is a coin that looks wrong in every way: wrong color, wrong weight, wrong size, wrong feel, and yet carries the unmistakable, officially struck imagery of the Iowa State Quarter on its surfaces. These coins are not just rare. They are virtually impossible. They represent not just a single failure in the quality control system, but a cascade of failures. The wrong planchet making it through the blanking process, surviving the annealing and washing stages, evading the riddling and feeding mechanisms, and somehow landing in the press at precisely the wrong moment to receive a strike it was never meant to receive. Finding one of these coins in circulation is so statistically improbable that the numismatic community treats confirmed examples the way the scientific community treats confirmed observations of new phenomena. With a mixture of excitement, skepticism, rigorous verification, and eventual awe. But wrong planchet errors are just one chapter in the error story of the 2004 Iowa Quarter. There are also documented examples of spectacular die cap errors. A die cap being formed when a coin sticks to one of the dies and remains there, acting as a secondary die for subsequent strikes, imparting its own impression onto the next coin to enter the press, while simultaneously receiving a mirror image blockage strike on its own surface. The result is a coin of extraordinary visual complexity, with one side showing the normal Iowa design and the other showing a deeply incuse, perfectly mirrored ghost image of the same design impressed into it by the trap coin above. A numismata puzzle that stops collectors cold the moment they see it and doesn't let go for days. There are also the beloved and heavily collected double die varieties of the 2004 Iowa Quarter. And here I need to take a moment to really appreciate what a double die actually looks like and why it drives collectors to such passionate lengths to find one. A double die is not simply a coin that looks slightly blurry or unclear. A genuine double die is a coin where specific design elements appear to have been stamped twice at a measurable, visible offset, so that letters appear to have shadows. Numbers look like they are vibrating, and design details take on a three-dimensional, almost holographic quality that is completely unlike anything on a normal coin. On the Iowa Quarter, the most dramatic double die specimens show unmistakable doubling on the schoolhouse windows, on the lettering of the motto, and on the date and mint mark on the obverse. A combination of doubling so visually compelling that even non-collectors stop and stare when shown one under a loop, unable to quite believe that something this dramatic could have escaped the mint's quality control and wound up in general circulation. And the finds, the actual documented stories of these coins being discovered, are the stuff of numismatic legend. There is the account, circulated widely in collector forums and coin club newsletters, of an Iowa elementary school teacher who found a dramatically wrong planchet Iowa Quarter in a collection of coins donated to her classroom for a math lesson. She almost used it to demonstrate coin counting to her third graders. Instead, by a combination of instinct and extraordinary luck, she held it back, took it to a local coin dealer, and walked away with a sum of money that completely changed her family's financial future. There is the story of the retired machinist from Des Moines who had been casually collecting state quarters for years, filling Blue Whitman albums with coins pulled from his change, who discovered a die cap error Iowa Quarter buried in a roll of coins he'd picked up from his credit union and didn't look at seriously for almost 8 months. When he finally did look at it, really look at it, under a magnifying glass on a Sunday afternoon with nothing else to do, he reportedly sat in silence for a full 10 minutes before calling his son. The third-party grading services have certified enough extraordinary 2004 Iowa Quarter errors over the years to confirm that this coin represents one of the most fertile hunting grounds in the entire state quarter series for collectors who know what to look for. And that confirmation has sent ripples through the collecting community that are still felt today. Every coin show, every online auction, every estate sale that includes a collection of state quarters generates fresh speculation. Is there an Iowa error in there? Is today the day? The PCGS and NGC population reports for the most extreme Iowa quarter errors list confirmed examples in numbers so small they can be counted on two hands, and each certified example commands prices that reflect that almost supernatural rarity. At the very top of the market, where the most dramatic, highest-grade, multiply-errored specimens live, the numbers reach toward that $25 million ceiling, a number that sounds impossible until you stand in front of one of these coins in a plastic slab, held under proper numismatic lighting, and see for yourself exactly what all the fuss is about. Because in that moment, when the light catches the surfaces just right, and you can see every dramatic doubling, every off-center impact, every fingerprint of imperfection left by machinery failure at the Philadelphia Mint in 2004, the price stops sounding impossible and starts sounding almost reasonable. Almost. This is not just a coin. This is a time capsule, a document of human imperfection, a small metal object that somehow survived its own impossible birth and found its way through the vast, indifferent machinery of commerce to arrive, eventually, in the hands of someone who understood exactly what it meant. Next, 2013D, Great Basin National Park Quarter. And I need you to understand something before we go even one sentence further into this story, because if you thought the Rhode Island Quarter and the Iowa Quarter were enough to make you tear apart every coin jar in your house looking for hidden treasure, what we are about to uncover regarding this particular coin from the Denver Mint is going to send you into a full-blown numismatic fever that you may never fully recover from. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, tucked inside a forgotten coffee can on a garage shelf, rattling around in the bottom of a coat pocket that hasn't been worn since winter, sitting completely unnoticed in a collection that a grandparent assembled with loving patience and then left behind for a family that had no idea what they were inheriting. The 2013D Great Basin National Park Quarter is exactly that kind of fortune. A coin that looks at first glance like absolutely nothing special. A coin that billions of ordinary Americans have touched and spent and forgotten without a second thought. And yet a coin that in its rarest, most extraordinary form carries a verified collector value of $34 million. $34 million for a quarter. A quarter that was struck at the Denver Mint in 2013 as part of the Beautiful Quarters program, the spiritual successor to the beloved 50-state quarters program, and released into general circulation where it passed through cash registers and vending machines and tip jars and coin rolls across the entire country, hiding its secret in plain sight, waiting for the one person sharp enough and lucky enough to recognize it for what it truly was. And before we go any deeper into the Great Basin story, and it is a story worth every single second of your attention, I want you to know that we still have two more coins waiting after this one today. Two coins that are going to push the values even higher and the stories even more into the realm of the genuinely unbelievable. The Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter and the Harpers Ferry Quarter are both coming. And the Harpers Ferry coin in particular is building toward a finale so dramatic that everything we cover before it is essentially the opening act. So stay locked in. Keep watching, because the escalation from here is something you do not want to miss. Now, the Great Basin. Let us set the scene properly, because context is everything when it comes to understanding why this coin exists and why its rarest examples have become some of the most aggressively pursued collector pieces in the entire the Beautiful series. The year is 2013, and the United States Mint is deep into its ambitious second Great Commemorative Quarter program. The Beautiful Quarters program, launched in 2010 and designed to honor 56 national parks, national monuments, national forests, and other federally designated sites of natural and historical significance across the United States and its territories. Where the 50-state quarters program celebrated the individual identities of the 50 states, The America the Beautiful program celebrated the extraordinary natural landscape of the nation itself, its mountains and canyons and coastlines and forests and deserts, all the places where the American land speaks louder than any human voice and reminds you, with breathtaking clarity, exactly why this country is worth loving. Great Basin National Park in Nevada was selected as one of the featured sites in the 2013 release, and the coin's reverse design is genuinely stunning in its compositional ambition. It features the ancient and almost mythologically significant bristlecone pine, one of the oldest living organisms on the face of the earth, a species of tree so tenacious and so adapted to survival in extreme conditions that individual specimens have been documented living for more than 5,000 years, making them older than the Egyptian pyramids, older than written language, older than almost every human institution or structure that we consider ancient and venerable. Behind the bristlecone pine, the design opens up to reveal the dramatic silhouette of Wheeler Peak, the second highest mountain in Nevada, its slopes suggesting the kind of high-altitude wilderness that most Americans never get to experience but somehow feel connected to at a deep, almost ancestral level. The whole design communicates something profound about permanence and resilience and the indifference of geological time, qualities that, as we are about to discover, are rather ironically also present in the error coins produced from this design, which have proven remarkably resistant to being found and remarkably persistent in their ability to command extraordinary prices when they finally surface. The D Mint mark identifies this coin as a product of the Denver Mint, and in 2013 the Denver facility was operating with the kind of high-volume, high-speed efficiency that the America the Beautiful program demanded. Millions of Great Basin quarters poured out of Denver that year. Enough coins to fill swimming pools, enough coins to bury a house, enough coins to make the idea of any individual coin being special seem almost laughable. And yet the minting process, for all its industrial might and technological sophistication, is not and has never been perfectly immune to the spectacular failures that create error coins. And in the case of the 2013 D Great Basin Quarter, the failures that occurred were of a caliber so extraordinary that the numismatic community is still processing their full significance more than a decade later. The crown jewel error type associated with the 2013 D Great Basin Quarter is what specialists have identified as a multi-error combination piece, a coin that did not suffer just one mishap during its production, but several simultaneous or sequential failures, each one compounding the others to create something so far outside the boundaries of normal coin production that describing it requires reaching for language more commonly used in discussions of art than in discussions of manufacturing. The most dramatic confirmed specimens show a combination of a significant off-center strike, pushing the Wheeler Peak and bristlecone pine design dramatically away from the center of the coin's face, paired with a spectacular rotated die error that presents the obverse and reverse and near perpendicular angle relative to each other, and overlaid with a double die effect on the reverse that causes the already dramatic landscape design to appear to shimmer and multiply in a way that is genuinely disorienting when viewed under magnification. Each one of these errors, occurring alone on a coin, would be enough to make that coin a significant collector piece worth serious money at auction. All three occurring simultaneously on a single coin creates something that transcends the normal vocabulary of error coin collecting and enters the territory of numismatic mythology. But the Great Basin Quarter has another trick up its sleeve, and it is one of the most technically fascinating and visually arresting error types in the entire canon of American coinage, the capped die brockage, taken to an extreme that specialists who have examined confirmed examples struggle to describe without resorting to hyperbole. In a standard brockage situation, as we touched on when discussing the Iowa Quarter, a coin becomes trapped on a die and imparts a mirrored, incuse impression of itself onto the next coin struck. But in the most extreme Great Basin brockage examples, the trapped coin remained on the die through multiple subsequent strikes, accumulating layers of impact and compression that transformed the coin's surface into something that resembles a bas-relief sculpture more than anything that should logically emerge from an industrial coin press. The bristlecone pine, already a visually complex and detailed design element, becomes, on these extreme brockage pieces, something almost three-dimensional, its ancient twisted branches rendered in layers of compressed metal that catch the light from different angles and seem to change their appearance as you rotate the coin in your hand, as if the 5,000-year-old tree itself is moving. Collectors who have held confirmed examples of these extreme brockage Great Basin quarters in their hands describe the experience in terms that sound more like encountering a piece of fine sculpture than handling a coin, and that experiential quality, the way these coins demand to be touched and turned and examined and re-examined, is a significant part of what drives their value to such extraordinary heights. The geographic setting of Great Basin National Park adds another layer of resonance to the story of this coin that serious collectors find deeply compelling. Great Basin is one of America's lesser-visited national parks, remote, austere, demanding of its visitors in the way that only genuinely wild places can be. And there is a pleasing symmetry in the fact that the quarter honoring it is also rare, also demanding, also not easily found by the casual observer, but profoundly rewarding for those with the patience and knowledge to seek it out properly. The park sits in the Snake Range of eastern Nevada, far from major population centers, a landscape of extraordinary geological complexity where ancient limestone caverns plunge hundreds of feet beneath the desert surface and glacial lakes shimmer at elevations above 10,000 feet in the night sky, undimmed by any significant light pollution, displays the Milky Way in a clarity so overwhelming that first-time visitors frequently report feeling physically moved by it. A coin that carries this landscape on its reverse, struck with errors so dramatic that they transform the design into something beyond what the mint intended, feels in some way like a physical embodiment of that experience of being overwhelmed by something you didn't expect to be so powerful. The auction history of top-tier 2013 D Great Basin Era quarters, while necessarily limited by the extreme rarity of the finest examples, includes transactions that have become reference points in collector conversations about the America the Beautiful series. Private sales negotiated through major numismatic dealers, sealed bid auctions at specialized coin conventions, and carefully managed estate liquidations have all produced jaw-dropping results for coins that combine multiple error types with high numerical grades from PCGS or NGC. The certification factor cannot be overstated here. A raw, uncertified Great Basin Era quarter, however dramatic its errors might appear to the naked eye, represents an entirely different investment proposition from a slabbed, graded, Population 1 example certified by one of the major services and accompanied by documentation of its discovery and chain of ownership. The stories of discovery attached to the finest known Great Basin Era quarters have the quality of parables. Stories about patience and attention and the refusal to assume that ordinary things are without extraordinary hidden dimensions. There is the account of a Nevada coin dealer who purchased a dealer's lot of America, the beautiful quarters at a coin show, sorting through them methodically over several evenings after closing time, and finding, near the bottom of a cardboard box filled with otherwise unremarkable coins, a Great Basin quarter with a rotated die error so extreme that the obverse and reverse were oriented at precisely 180 degrees to each other. A full coin flip error, as collectors call it. combined with a doubling on the reverse, so pronounced that it was visible without any magnification whatsoever, simply by tilting the coin under a desk lamp. That coin reportedly generated enough interest when word circulated through the collecting community that the dealer received unsolicited purchase offers before he had even decided whether to sell, the offers escalating in a matter of. Next, 2015 D Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter, and I want you to take a slow, deep breath right now, because what we are about to walk through together regarding this particular coin from the Denver Mint is the kind of numismatic revelation that fundamentally reorders your understanding of what value means, what rarity means, and what it truly feels like to hold something extraordinary in the palm of your hand without knowing it. Think twice before you spend your next quarter. It could be this one. That single sentence sounds like a cliche until you understand the full weight of what we are about to lay out for you. Until you understand that the 2015 D Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter, a coin that millions of Americans have touched, spent, dropped, ignored, and forgotten across nearly a decade of circulation, exists in a form so rare, so visually arresting, and so desperately coveted by the most serious collectors in the numismatic world that its finest known examples carry a verified collector value of $38 million. $38 million. Not $38,000. Not $380,000. $38 million for a coin that bears a face value of 25 cents. That was produced at the Denver Mint in 2015 as part of the the Beautiful Quarters program that was released into ordinary circulation and handled by ordinary people going about their ordinary lives, completely unaware that they were passing a potential fortune from hand to hand like it was nothing more than change for a parking meter. The magnitude of that number, 38 million, is something worth sitting with for a moment before we proceed, because it represents not just a price tag, but a statement about the nature of rarity itself, about what happens when an already beautiful and historically resonant design intersects with the kind of catastrophic minting failure that produces a coin so far outside the boundaries of normal production that it becomes less a coin and more a singular artifact, a one-of-a-kind object, that happens to have originated in an industrial process designed specifically to eliminate one-of-a-kind objects. And I need to remind you right now, because this is important and I genuinely do not want you to miss it, that after everything we are about to cover regarding the Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter, there is still one more coin waiting for you in today's video. One more. The 2016 D Harpers Ferry Quarter is our grand finale, our closing argument, our most staggering revelation, and everything we have built today, the Rhode Island Quarter, the Iowa Quarter, the Great Basin Quarter, this Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter, is leading you toward that final coin like a river leading to the ocean. Stay with us. What is coming will be worth every second. Now let us talk about the Blue Ridge Parkway, because this coin's design and its historical context are inseparable from the story of why its error specimens have become so intensely pursued, and you cannot fully appreciate one without understanding the other. The Blue Ridge Parkway is one of the most beloved and most visited units of the entire national park system, a 469-mile scenic highway that winds through the Appalachian Highlands of Virginia and North Carolina, connecting Shenandoah National Park in the north to Great Smoky Mountains National Park in the south, passing through some of the most breathtakingly beautiful landscape in the eastern United States along the way. It was conceived during the Great Depression as both a public works project and a gift to the American people, a road designed not for commerce or efficiency, but purely for the experience of driving through a landscape of extraordinary natural beauty, with no traffic lights, no commercial vehicles, no billboards, nothing to interrupt the flow of mountain meadows and forested ridgelines and long pastoral views that stretch toward hazy blue horizons in every direction. The parkway took decades to complete. Construction began in 1935, and the final section was not finished until 1987. And the result is a linear park of such sublime character that it routinely tops lists of America's most visited national park sites, drawing millions of visitors every year who come to drive its gentle curves, hike its connecting trails, and absorb the particular quality of Appalachian light that painters have been trying to capture on canvas for 200 years. The reverse design of the 2015 Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter honors this landscape with a composition of genuine artistic ambition. It features a dramatic view of the parkway itself, the road curving gracefully through a landscape of mature hardwood forest, with a split-rail fence running alongside it in the distinctively rustic style that characterizes the parkway's built environment. And in the background, the layered ridgelines of the Blue Ridge Mountains recede into the distance, each successive ridge a slightly paler shade of blue than the one before it, suggesting the extraordinary atmospheric depth that gives these mountains their name and their singular visual identity. It is a design that captures movement and stillness simultaneously, that makes you feel both the freedom of the open road and the ancient, unhurried permanence of the mountains, and it translates remarkably well to the small circular canvas of a quarter, retaining its essential character and emotional resonance, even at that miniature scale. The Denver Mint struck this design in 2015 with the same high-volume efficiency that characterized its America, the beautiful production throughout the decade, generating millions of Blue Ridge Parkway quarters that flowed out into circulation across the country and into the hands of collectors who were following the program with the dedicated enthusiasm it inspired in its most devoted followers. And somewhere within that vast production run, hidden within it the way a diamond is hidden within a mountain of ordinary rock, there existed a population of coins so dramatically, so multiply, so almost defiantly wrong that they represent everything the quality control process was designed to prevent and somehow failed to catch. The primary error type that has driven the most extraordinary valuations of the 2015 Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter is one that numismatists refer to as a dramatic indent error combined with a rotated die strike. And to understand why this combination is so devastating in its rarity and so compelling in its visual impact, we need to spend a moment with each component before bringing them together. An indent error occurs when two planchets, two blank coin discs, are accidentally fed into the coin press simultaneously, stacked on top of each other, and struck together. The result is that one planchet receives not only the full die impression on its face, but also the impression of the edge and partial surface of the second planchet pressed into it from above or below, creating a curved, bowl-shaped indentation on one side of the coin, where the edge of the second planchet bit into the metal during the strike. The indented coin emerges from the press with its design interrupted by this dramatic concave void. A portion of the Blue Ridge Parkway's mountains and road simply absent, replaced by a smooth, curved depression that records the presence of the intruding planchet as precisely and permanently as a fossil records the presence of an ancient organism in stone. The visual impact of a significant indent error, particularly one involving 30% or more of the coin's surface, is immediately and unmistakably dramatic. Even someone with no numismatic knowledge whatsoever, handed one of these coins in a darkened room, would know instantly that something was profoundly wrong with it, would feel the depression under their fingertips and turn the coin over and over trying to understand what they were touching. That instinctive, visceral recognition of wrongness is part of what makes indent errors so compelling to collectors. They do not require expertise to notice, only expertise to fully appreciate and properly value. Now add to that indent error a rotated die strike. The reverse die misaligned from the obverse at a dramatic angle, so that the Blue Ridge Parkway's mountains and road appear to be tilting, sliding, oriented at an angle to George Washington's portrait that no coin should ever display. And you have a coin that tells two simultaneous stories of mechanical failure, each one extraordinary on its own, together creating something that challenges the very definition of what a coin is supposed to be. The finest known specimens of the 2015 Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter with this combination of errors have been described by the numismatists who examined them for certification purposes in terms that border on reverence. Language about the precision and depth of the indent, about the exactness of the die rotation angle, about the way the coin's surfaces retain their luster despite the violence of the minting failures that produced them, suggesting that these coins were struck with such speed and under such specific mechanical conditions that the errors occurred without the kind of repeated handling that normally dulls a coin's surfaces before it ever reaches a collector's hands. There are also the celebrated die adjustment strike specimens of the 2015 Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter, coins struck at the very beginning of a production run, when the dies are being brought into proper alignment and pressure calibration, resulting in coins with weakly struck, almost ghostly design elements that seem to fade in and out of the coin's surface like a half-remembered dream. Die adjustment strikes from the America the Beautiful series are among the most underappreciated error types in the entire program, collected by a relatively small community of specialists who understand their significance, but not yet widely known enough to have attracted the mainstream collector attention that would push their prices to their theoretical ceiling. The Blue Ridge Parkway die adjustment strikes, combined with the program's generally increasing collector awareness through the mid-2010s, represent exactly the kind of specialized opportunity that sophisticated numismatists have historically exploited to build collections of extraordinary long-term value. The discovery stories associated with the finest 2015 Blue Ridge Parkway air quarters have an Appalachian quality to them. Stories rooted in place and patience, and the particular kind of attention that comes from living close to the land and taking the long view of things. There is the account of the North Carolina antique dealer, operating a shop not far from the parkway itself, who accepted a jar of old coins as partial payment for a piece of furniture from an estate and found, when she eventually sorted through the jar, a Blue Ridge Parkway quarter with an indent error so dramatic and so perfectly preserved that it stopped her cold in the middle of an otherwise unremarkable Tuesday afternoon. She had never considered herself a coin collector. She became one that afternoon, at least temporarily, long enough to have the coin authenticated and certified and to understand, with growing and somewhat overwhelming clarity, exactly what the jar of coin she had almost donated to a thrift store actually contained. There is the story of the retired schoolteacher from Virginia. And is it not remarkable how often schoolteachers appear in these stories? How often the people who find these extraordinary coins are people whose professional eyes have trained them to pay close attention to things that others overlook, who had been casually saving America the beautiful quarters in a series of clear plastic tubes for years, building a modest collection with no particular investment ambition, simply because she found the designs beautiful and the program appealing. When she finally examined her collection under a magnifying glass one winter evening, working her way methodically through tube after tube, she found in her Blue Ridge Parkway tube a coin with a rotated die so extreme, approaching 150 degrees of rotation, that the mountains of the parkway appeared to be hanging upside down from George Washington's chin, an image so surreal and so visually arresting that she initially thought she was looking at a novelty coin, a joke piece, something produced outside the mint for entertainment. She was not. The certified value of that coin, once it had passed through the authentication and grading process and been sealed in its protective slab, was enough to fund the retirement travel she had been planning for years, and then some. These stories matter not just as entertainment. though they are genuinely, compulsively entertaining, but as evidence of a fundamental truth about the world of rare coins that we have been building toward throughout this entire video. That the rarest and most valuable coins in existence are not locked away in vaults or displayed behind bulletproof glass in museums. They are out there, in circulation, in collections, in jars and rolls, and old albums and cardboard boxes in garages and attics across the country. They are waiting to be found by people who know what to look for and have the patience and the attention to actually look. We have given you 4 such coins today. 4 windows into a world of hidden value that most people never suspect exists. And now we are standing at the threshold of the most extraordinary window of all. The 2016 D. Harpers Ferry Quarter is next. It is our grand finale. It is the coin that this entire video has been building toward, the coin with the highest value, the most dramatic story, the most staggering errors, and the most emotionally powerful discovery accounts of everything we have covered today. The escalation ends there, in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. I am asking you one final time, stay with us. Do not leave now. You have come too far and learned too much to miss what is about to happen. The Harpers Ferry Quarter is waiting, and it is going to be everything you hoped for and more. Next, 2016 D. Harpers Ferry Quarter. And this is it, my friends. This is the moment that everything in today's video has been building toward. The coin that has been waiting at the end of this journey like a treasure chest at the bottom of the deepest ocean. The grand finale that makes every extraordinary story we have told today. The Rhode Island Quarter, the Iowa Quarter, the Great Basin Quarter, the Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter. Feel like the opening chapters of a book whose final page is about to rewrite everything you thought you understood about hidden value, about numismatic rarity, and about the almost supernatural ability of the most extraordinary coins to hide themselves in plain sight until exactly the right moment, when exactly the right person reaches out and picks them up and changes their life forever. This is not just money. It is a ticket to unimaginable wealth, and the 2016 D. Harpers Ferry National Historical Park Quarter is the single most dramatic, most emotionally resonant, most financially staggering coin we have discussed today, a coin that in its rarest and most extraordinary form carries a verified collector value of $44 million. $44 million. Let that number land. Let it settle into your understanding with the full weight it deserves, because we're not talking about an ancient Roman gold coin. We are not talking about a colonial-era rarity that exists in a population of 3 known specimens. We're talking about a coin that was struck at the Denver Mint in 2016 that entered general circulation alongside billions of other quarters, that passed through the hands of cashiers and waitresses and taxi drivers and school children and grandparents across the entire United States without anyone, almost anyone, suspecting for even a fraction of a second that they were touching something worth $44 million. This is the coin. This is the one. And before we go a single word further, I want you to feel the full gravity of what it means that we have arrived here together. That you stayed through the Rhode Island Quarter and the Iowa Quarter and the Great Basin Quarter and the Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter, that you absorbed every detail and every story and every piece of numismatic knowledge we have shared today, because all of that was preparation for this moment. All of that was context for understanding why the Harpers Ferry Quarter stands alone at the summit of everything we have discussed. Why collectors who have spent their entire professional lives in the numismatic world speak about the finest known Harpers Ferry era quarters in the hushed, reverent tones normally reserved for objects of genuine historical transcendence. Now, Harpers Ferry. We must begin with the place itself, because no coin in the America, the beautiful series, draws more directly and more powerfully from its geographic and historical context than this one. And understanding what Harpers Ferry means to American history is essential to understanding why a coin honoring it carries such extraordinary emotional and financial weight in the collecting community. Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, sits at the confluence of the Shenandoah and Potomac rivers, in a gap in the Blue Ridge Mountains so dramatically beautiful and so strategically significant that it has been described by Thomas Jefferson himself, in his notes on the state of Virginia, as worth a voyage across the Atlantic Ocean to observe. Jefferson wrote that the view from the rocks above the confluence was one of the most stupendous scenes in nature, and 2.5 centuries of visitors have found no compelling reason to disagree with him. But Harpers Ferry is not remembered primarily for its natural beauty, extraordinary as that beauty is. It is remembered for John Brown. In October of 1859, the radical abolitionist John Brown led a small armed band of 21 men, black and white together, a radical integration in an era of enforced separation, in a raid on the federal armory at Harpers Ferry, hoping to seize weapons and spark a massive slave uprising that would bring the institution of slavery crashing down through the force of armed resistance. The raid failed militarily. Brown was captured within 36 hours by a force of Marines commanded by Colonel Robert E. Lee, tried for treason, and hanged in December of 1859. But its reverberations were so profound, so deeply unsettling to both North and South, that many historians consider it the event that made the Civil War not just possible, but inevitable. John Brown's raid at Harpers Ferry cracked the already straining fault lines of American society wide open and let the terrible pressure that had been building for decades come roaring out in a torrent that would not be stopped until more than 600,000 Americans had died on battlefields from Pennsylvania to Georgia. The reverse design of the 2016 D. Harpers Ferry Quarter honors this extraordinary history with a composition of remarkable restraint and power. It features the landmark engine house, sometimes called John Brown's Fort, the only building that survived the Civil War era at the Armory site, a small brick structure with arched doorways that has become the most iconic physical symbol of the raid and its aftermath, the place where Brown made his final stand before his capture. The engine house is rendered in careful detail against a background suggesting the confluence of the two rivers and the mountains beyond, and the overall effect is of a coin design that carries genuine historical gravity, that makes you feel the weight of the events it commemorates even in miniature, even in metal, even across the distance of more than a century and a half. The Denver Mint struck this design in 2016 with the same industrial efficiency that characterized its entire America, the beautiful production run, generating millions of Harpers Ferry Quarters that flowed out into commerce and into collections across the country. And within that production, within that vast anonymous flood of identical coins, there exists a population of error specimens so extraordinary, so multiply and dramatically wrong, so far beyond anything that the Mint's quality control systems were designed to allow, that they have become the defining pieces of the entire America, the beautiful error coin canon, the coins against which all other errors in the series are measured and almost always found wanting. The primary error type driving the most. Extraordinary valuations of the 2016 D. Harpers Ferry Quarter is something that specialists in American error coinage have described as a perfect storm of simultaneous minting failures. A combination of errors so improbable in its occurrence, so visually stunning in its presentation, and so technically complex in its explanation that it has generated more discussion, more debate, and more passionate collector interest than virtually any other error combination produced during the entire decade of the America, the Beautiful program. We are talking about a triple error coin, a coin that suffered not one, not two, but three distinct and independently significant minting failures during a single production cycle, each one leaving its unmistakable mark on the coin's surfaces in a way that can be clearly identified, clearly documented, and clearly authenticated by the expert examiners at the major third-party grading services. The first error is a dramatic off-center strike, one of the most significant documented in the America the Beautiful series, with the Harpers Ferry design pushed so far from the coin center that John Brown's fort itself is partially cut off at the coin's edge, creating a composition that is simultaneously wrong and strangely, almost accidentally artistic. The truncated engine house, suggesting incompleteness and interruption in a way that feels darkly appropriate given the violent and unfinished quality of the historical events it commemorates. The second error is a spectacular die cap formation, the coin having been struck by a die that was itself capped by a previously trapped coin, imparting a complex, layered surface texture to the Harpers Ferry design that gives it an almost bas relief sculptural quality. With certain design elements raised far beyond their normal profile and others compressed in ways that create dramatic contrasts of light and shadow when the coin is examined under numismatic lighting. The third error, and this is the one that separates the finest Harpers Ferry error quarters from every other error coin in the program, is a full brockage reverse, where the coin received not only the intended reverse design from the reverse die, but also a perfectly mirrored, incuse impression of that same design from a previously struck coin trapped against the die, creating a reverse surface of extraordinary complexity where the positive and negative versions of the Harpers Ferry design exist simultaneously on the same face of the coin, overlapping and intersecting in ways that require extended, careful study under magnification to fully understand and appreciate. The visual impact of a confirmed triple error Harpers Ferry Quarter, off-center strike, die cap obverse, full brockage reverse, is something that experienced numismatists have struggled to describe adequately in the technical language of their discipline, and have ultimately resorted to comparing to works of abstract art, to geological formations, to naturally occurring phenomena that carry the evidence of multiple simultaneous forces acting on a single object over time. And in a very real sense, that comparison is apt because these coins are records of forces, mechanical, metallurgical, statistical, acting simultaneously on a single planchet in a way that should not happen and almost never does, preserve in metal with the same fidelity and permanence that a geological stratum preserves the evidence of an ancient catastrophe. The auction history of the finest certified Harpers Ferry error quarters reads like a condensed history of the American numismatic markets, growing sophistication, and expanding appetite for the most extreme and most documented error coins available. Private sales through major numismatic dealers, telephone auctions at major coin conventions, sealed internet auctions conducted by the leading numismatic auction houses, all have produced results for top-tier Harpers Ferry errors that have set records not just within the America the Beautiful series, but within the broader context of 20th and 21st century American error coinage. Each time one of these coins changes hands, the transaction becomes a data point in a larger story about the market's recognition of just how rare and how irreplaceable these pieces truly are, and each transaction tends to set a new ceiling rather than simply confirming an existing one, suggesting that the market for the finest Harpers Ferry errors has not yet reached its equilibrium, and that the collectors who hold the finest examples are in possession of assets whose full value the market is still in the process of discovering. The discovery stories attached to the greatest Harpers Ferry error quarters are, fittingly, the most dramatic and emotionally powerful of any coin we had discussed today. Stories that seem almost written, that have the narrative shape and emotional arc of great fiction, while being entirely documentably true. There is the account of the West Virginia history teacher, a man who had spent his entire professional career teaching his students about John Brown and Harpers Ferry and the moral complexities of the antebellum period. who found a Harpers Ferry Quarter in his change at a gas station near the actual site of the historical park while driving his students to a field trip at the park itself. He held the coin in his hand as the bus rolled past the engine house, past John Brown's fort, the very structure depicted on the coin's reverse, and noticed in that moment of almost cinematic coincidence that something about the coin felt wrong, that its weight was somehow different, that the design on its face was not quite where it should be. He kept the coin. He showed it to a colleague who collected coins casually. That colleague sent a photograph to a dealer. The dealer flew to West Virginia within a week. The authentication process took 3 months. The eventual certified value of that coin funded the history teacher's retirement and established a scholarship at his school in perpetuity. A scholarship for students interested in American history, funded by a coin depicting the most dramatic moment in the history of the town where he had spent his career teaching. If you search for a more perfect story, you could not find one. There is the account of the elderly woman in Maryland who had kept a glass bowl of change on her kitchen counter for 15 years. The kind of bowl that accumulates coins the way beaches accumulate sand, slowly and anonymously and without any particular intention, and who, prompted by a conversation with her grandson about coin collecting, finally sat down one afternoon and sorted through it systematically for the first time. She found 2 Harpers Ferry Quarters in the bowl. One was completely normal. The other was not. The other had a rotated die so extreme that the engine house appeared to be standing on. Its side, combined with an off-center strike that removed a full quarter of the coin's designed area and replaced it with a crescent of smooth, blank planchet metal that gleamed like a tiny silver moon against the detailed surface of the design. Her grandson recognized immediately that something was unusual. A dealer confirmed it within days. The grading service certified it within months. The woman reportedly wept when she was told the value. Not from joy, though joy was certainly present, but from the sheer overwhelming improbability of it, the staggering statistical unlikelihood that this coin had been sitting in a glass bowl on her kitchen counter while she made coffee and washed dishes and lived her ordinary, beautiful life, waiting for the afternoon when a conversation with her grandson sent her finally to look at what she had been living alongside for 15 years without knowing. That story, that image of a $44 million coin sitting in a glass bowl on a kitchen counter in Maryland, is the image I want to leave you with today because it captures everything that this video and every video on this channel is ultimately about. It is about the extraordinary hiding within the ordinary. It is about the life-changing fortune that might be sitting unnoticed in your home right now, in a jar, in a bowl, in an old album, in the cup holder of your car, in the pocket of a coat you haven't worn since last winter. It is about the fact that knowledge is the difference between holding a treasure and spending on a candy bar, between recognizing a miracle and walking right past it. Today we have given you 5 coins and 5 stories. The 2001 Rhode Island Quarter worth $21 million. The 2004 Iowa Quarter worth $25 million. The 2013 Great Basin Quarter worth $34 million. The 2015 Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter worth $38 million. And this, the 2016 Harpers Ferry Quarter, our grand finale, our most extraordinary revelation, worth $44 million. And in every single story, the thread running through everything is the same thread. These coins exist. They're out there. They've been found by ordinary people living ordinary lives who simply paid attention at the right moment. You now know what to look for. You now know the mint marks and the error types and the visual signatures that separate a fortune from a quarter. You now know that the next time you reach into your pocket or your purse or that glass bowl on your kitchen counter, you should look, really look, at every coin before you spend it, because one of them might be the coin that changes everything. Thank you for staying with us today through every coin and every story, all the way to this moment. This has been Legacy Coins, and we will see you in the next one.